Jenni, great to see you. Thanks for joining us. So what can you tell us about the two Native American women who were elected last night, one that you have a bit of a connection with?
Well, I have a connection only in that we're citizens of the Pueblo of Laguna. And, you know, as a journalist, we're supposed to be so objective, but I'd be lying if I said there's not a little bit of pride, one, as an Indigenous woman, but two, as a citizen of the same tribe. So I just think there's an intensity around that kind of pride today in receiving this kind of exciting news. These two women, now the first two women ever elected into Congress, in the U.S. Congress.
How historic was that, and were there other historic victories last night as well?
There were other historic victories. I think what's central to the congressional victories of Deb Haaland and Sharice Davids, though, is that we heard today, particularly in some of the remarks from Deb Haaland, in that she's really shifting an immediate focus to the issue on violence against Indigenous women here in the United States. Certainly not, a unfamiliar issue for First Nations residents in Canada, but here in the United States, that legislation is just picking up. And what we also saw from the midterm elections last night was also the defeat of North Dakota Senator Heidi Heitkamp, who had been seen as kind of the lead champion on legislation to help curb this chronic rate of violence on Indigenous women here in the U.S. And so to have Haaland come out from the jump and start really embracing this issue, and also giving a real nod to the fact that there's not just Haaland and Davids now in the Congress. You have two other Republican congressmen who will be joining, who are Native American, already in the House. And so, we have something to look forward to in terms of what kind of policy could be shaped around this issue.
Jenni, you were in North Dakota, and as many of our viewers might know, a law was passed prior to the election that kind of threatened the Native American vote there. How did things turn out?
Remarkably. I think that the message, the big takeaway is try to take away Native vote and they'll turn out in record numbers. We saw record-breaking voter turnout at precincts across Indian country here in North Dakota. At Standing Rock, I know that there were the voter turnout was 50% more than what it had been in the previous election. At Turtle Mountain, they had something, I believe the numbers were somewhere in over 5,000. Were tallied in Rollick County, which oversees the precincts there for Turtle Mountain. I know that my time on the ground yesterday, I went precinct to precinct, and at Spirit Lake, they were still printing tribal IDs as voting was happening, which meant that people there were showing up, getting their new IDs so that they could vote to meet the standards of this address verification voter ID law, and voting. And at that point in time, more than 600 tribal IDs had been printed, and half of those had been cast as ballots. So it's remarkable. And I think that there's a sentiment here in North Dakota that, this voter turnout is just the start of really embracing a new voter movement across Indian country.
Good stuff, Jenni. Appreciate your coverage through all this, and for taking some time for us here today.
Thank you, Dennis.